Hey YouTube, this is Mega Dweezil coming at you from the great Indiana wilderness, and it's a cold night outside tonight, and I was fooling with my hawk suppressor today, and I noticed that really my face and my neck were unprotected, so I ran up a extreme cold weather helmet here using Joe Comp, of course. And a pop bottle that I found in the dumpster, and this will protect my face from frostbite. It also has an application, in protecting me from snow blindness in the event that I don't, have any sunglasses. The thing is, it like makes you look like you're getting ready to go over to the dark side, and that's a very important thing. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first of all, in order to do stuff like this, we can make clothes, we can make cord, we can make building materials, we can make all sorts of stuff. The problem is, that we don't know what this stuff is going to do. It isn't generally used for these things. It may never have been used for these things. Consequently, we've got to interrogate this material. And at least that's what I call it. Okay, you've got to take your materials that are available to you, and you've got to figure out what it is that they want to do. You've got to figure out what it is they're trying to be and what it is that they're going to do for you. And, we think that because something is plastic, it's supposed to be easy, it's supposed to snap together. And in fact, like 4 plies of one plastic will give you this, 4 plies of another plastic will give you this. Okay? And really very different stuff. You have to learn which bags are which. You have to sort bags. You have to be able to, you got to know your material a little bit, and that's hard. That's a lot more work than most people are ready to do. They've got to go pay somebody for some shit at the store, and I can understand that. Because that brings us to our second point, which is just the problem with gear like this. Okay, and the problem with like my hawk suppressor or any of the other things that I make is that it doesn't look like the shit that people buy at Walmart, and that's a problem, because you see, we've gotten to the point in our culture where it's like it's stigmatized to make your own stuff. Only poor people make their own stuff. Only poor people, collect things that other people throw out and use them. And so I was, sitting the other night at work, and there were some bags in the trash can, so I'm braiding up some string, sitting at my terminal, and I've been doing this for about a week, and one of the girls has just been giving me shit about it, steadily. And she says, "Why are you doing this?" I said, "Well, I'm learning to be a poor person." And she said, "Well, I don't know what that means." And I said, "You'll figure it out." And eventually, it got to the point where people were bringing me bags. I didn't ask them to do that, but people started bringing me bags to see what I was doing. And finally, the other night, a girl that didn't even work on my floor showed up, and she brought some bags, different colored bags, actually, which is, you can find those, but they're hard to find. And she says, she said, "I heard you were doing this, and I got a loom at home that my mom used to weave rag rugs on." She says, "And I bet I could weave that cord there." That's how the shit starts, see? That's how this thing is going to have to work. It's got to be cool to start doing this stuff again, and somebody's got to break trail, Somebody's got to be the trailblazer. And if it's going to be you, it ain't necessarily going to be cool. You probably are going to get thrown a lot of shit, because you're wearing something you made instead of something that you bought at Walmart, or your furniture doesn't look like everybody else's, because you made it yourself. Maybe out of PVC pipe, or maybe out of scrap wood, you know, or you know, your heating system doesn't work the same as every. What I mean, the law will even get involved in that shit. You know, if you've got kids in a house that has an unconventional heating system. Whew. So basically, you know, what I'm saying here is that culturally, you know, if we expect to get any place with this stuff, it's us that's got to change. Barack Obama didn't tell me that I can't wear my Hawk suppressor to work. Okay? You know, neither did the Chief Justices, you know, neither did the Illuminati. Who tells me that is the folks at work that want to fucking laugh at me if I wear a Hawk suppressor. You know, that's my own ego preventing me, you know, from doing the stuff that I need to do if I'm going to adapt to this new environment. Also, we got to be aware of the fact that, you know, we're not going to be able to go backwards into something. We have to go forwards into something else. You know, what's coming is not, you know, a reemergence of the old days. It's the new days. And we have got to be prepared to deal with, you know, the new days as they exist. We can certainly use older techniques, but now we have new materials. You know, now we have plastics. Now we have, you know, there's, I mean, it's kind of cool and hippie-ish to be a leather worker. You know, how many plastic workers do you know? I mean, that's kind of fucked up. I mean, it's, yeah, he spends all his time picking up plastic bags. Fucking, well, yeah, but I mean, these are, you know, these are the kind of skills that are going to emerge if, in fact, we do have some sort of a social schism here, and things really do get bad. And you know, it's going to be important to be able to make rain jackets out of plastic bags. You know, people will trade you shit for those. It's going to be important to be able to make, you know, mucklucks or snow boots out of plastic bags. We can do all that. We can do all that with the stuff that we have here. We can do all that for free, you know, if we're willing to put in a little bit of work. But the first thing we have to do is get out of our own way and just understand that, you know, no, this isn't for poor people anymore. You know, this is the shit that we're going to have to be able to do, okay, if we expect to get along in what it is that people seem to think is coming. So, you know, grade you some road, man. Make something. I'll tell you how my stuff comes out, you tell me how your stuff comes out. You know, and together, maybe we can kind of get something cooking here in terms of, like, you know, I hate to use the word fucking movement, because movements are a pain in the ass, but, you know, rather an attitude of, hey, you know, it's okay to make your own shit. And if you get blown to shit at work, you know, make a video about it and come on back here and talk to me, you know, because I'm on your side. In any case, don't worry, YouTube. Indiana's holding.